following the seemingly endless urban sprawl of southeast Florida. The next stretch of driving is a nice little respite. We're still following the coast, and with it the attendant apartment buildings and condos and tourism that you get throughout Florida. But it's interesting to see how the character of these different communities changes as you get further away from the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area. A lot of it is a bit samey, as I guess you'd expect to see with the general nature of beach sprawl. A lot of the time you're traveling along A1A on Barrier Island, separated from the mainland by the Intercoastal Waterway. It was a nice change, if not particularly scenically interesting. And it's definitely nice to be able to stop and sit by the Atlantic Ocean and just kind of take in the scenery when you want to take a little break. As you travel further north, the beachside communities give way to a series of different types of communities, including sort of the bedroom communities that serve the Air Force bases, the Space Force base at Patrick, and also Cape Canaveral. There's an odd mix of space history and military bases and tourism related to them that makes this area kind of unique in my opinion. To me, it all seems rather familiar and cozy, and that's because my dad was a longtime NASA veteran, and I grew up with this in my life, not necessarily on an everyday basis, but it is something that seems nonetheless very familiar to me personally. So for the last couple days we've been driving along the Atlantic Ocean, but not really seeing it because there's always hotels in the way or whatever. We saw a little bit more of the Gulf of Mexico, but this is the Atlantic Ocean, and people out here enjoying the beach, as well they should. You got a A lot of seagulls here down by the water. Well, let's kind of go wander down and disturb the seagulls a little bit. Looks like we have a little bit of surf today. I see herring gulls, I see common gulls, and I see terns. Actually, I see two different types of terns. You see there's a little bit of fog on the horizon. It's been kind of on and off foggy this morning, but because we're kind of getting towards midday here, the fog is kind of burned off a bit. If you had a surfboard, that would be awesome surfing. These birds do not seem all that bothered by me. Let's see if we can get a little closer. Sorry, birds. Yeah. It's like the Red Sea, if the Red Sea were made up of terns and seagulls. No, we got a surfer out here. So as far as location, we're actually around Melbourne, Florida. So we're kind of heading up towards Cocoa Beach and the Kennedy Space Center and all of that. We won't be going into the Space Center, but we'll be passing through Cocoa Beach, which is the nearest town. Okay, well, this has been a nice break, but we gotta go. So this is Canaveral National Cemetery. It's one of the newest of the national cemeteries. Much like Arlington, it is mainly military. And the reason why I'm here is because my dad is buried here. My dad was a long-time NASA spokesperson, and and also an Army veteran, and that allowed him to be buried here. I don't remember where precisely he is, but I know he's over here. So I just kind of have to look. Oh, I see him. Always stop when I'm here. I find cemeteries to be very interesting places, and I feel like they're parks in a way. It's a beautiful place.